everyone. How's everyone doing today? Good.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. Yeah. That's what I love to hear. Can they see me? Are we on? Or?
Yeah. You're all.
Well, welcome everyone. We'll get this party started or this meeting started. First of all, I always ask somebody, what's a win? What's a win this last week? Anybody?
Oh, a new listing.
Oh, March got a new listing. Yeah. And I'll get my win too. I've got a new listing tomorrow as well, which is kind of fun. Yes. Anybody else? A win this week?
I have a pending deal.
Actually, have the pending deal. Yeah, great. I think I have a couple of people that are speaking with Prime Lending also about pre-approval and stuff like that. So that's kind of fun. Also a big win for KW is Sarah Layton. Give her a great round of applause. She's back from KW. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. Okay, so we're going to open up the meeting today with an extraordinary clinic we had with Fletcher Ellingson this past weekend. And I've asked some of the people that are in here to speak to their experience and give you a little bit of insight into what they learned, what came out of the clinic. It was a 2-day clinic that everyone was aware of. And personally, I thought it was extraordinary, but it was incredible. It gave you a lot of awareness, insight, personal insight into programming. But I'm going to let our agents kind of in the room right now speak to their experience. Anybody like to share a little bit of what they took from that clinic this weekend?
Lois, I'll share because
Okay.
you mentioned the same kind of what I was thinking about, that reprogramming. You talked about our programming. And I'm a big believer in counseling. For anybody and everybody, I don't think you have to have anything wrong with you to have a counselor. Well, it was like having a personal counselor, even though there was like 12 people in the room, that he was like speaking to each person, I felt like individually, because he was talking about our own programming and how we can shift it to have different ways of thinking about things. And it was free. I got a counseling session for free. I know. So that's why I was feeling like just really motivated and encouraged, and you know, I got some inspiration from having a free counseling session, and really thinking about how my program affects me as not just personally, but in my business, all my businesses. So it was really, really inspiring.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I feel like it was so inspiring as well, right? You take a look at everything you're doing in your life after that. And there's like this awareness all of a sudden, like, if I stand back, if I take a look at it, what's really happening, right? Yeah, the big picture. Anybody else like to share?
No, I agree. So I felt really honored to be there because it seemed like, well, I feel like Fletcher is on the level of like the greatest, you know, like a Tony Robbins, or, I mean, it was like, am I really here and this is free? And I'm in a room with this incredible mind who is investing in us, you know? And he would sit and dig in like, okay, well, I'm kind of feeling stuck in this one area. And he was like, all right, let's talk about it. And he'd be like driving, and I would find myself going, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the answer is. He goes, okay, but if you did know, what would it be? I'm like,
We're gonna get deep.
No,
We're gonna get deep.
But I seriously have had a few breakthroughs this weekend that I would not have been able to do on my own. So it was incredible.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And that's all we can expect, right? Is hopefully that shifted something, right? And that's why you bring in mentors or masterminds and have mastermind sessions like this. Anyone else? Sarah?
I have had the joy of working with Fletcher for the last 7 months, and he has been an absolute game changer for me. One of the things that, you know, he clicks in my head of like, oh yeah, you told me that before, but it clicks, is that where he took because and said, I cause. You know, I cause what's going on in my life. One of the things that I really hold on to from him is that I'm perfectly poised for what comes next, and that I have all the time I need for the things that are important to me, so that I keep myself out of that trap of I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have time. Everything's too much, you know, it's like, is it? Is it really? Because and then, he's taught me to look for the evidence of what I've done in the past. Like, oh yeah, I did this, you know, this right here really isn't gonna be that big and crazy. And I think he just, for me, restores faith in my ability to see past that spinning tape going on in my head and step back and say, yeah, there it is, you know, and I can move past it.
Oh, that's
I
fantastic.
just appreciate the weekend.
Yeah, I love that insight.
He's
It's
stuck in
huge.
our brains now.
It's stuck in our brains, it's there, so now you're aware of it, so you think about it all the time, I agree with that. Because, and I call it, and that was an eye opener as well. Anybody else like to share anything? Ashley, anything?
Pretty much he's stuck in my brain. I mean, even after like 2 days, it's like, yeah, I would think of the, you know, the snares he was talking about. And then the programming was the big thing. I think it took me like a half an hour of like, what is mine? And then I just wrote like a whole book of a page of like, and I usually don't like, you know, journal very much or do any of those things, but now it's like, I 100% know what my programming is. So, yeah, he's in here all the time now. I mean, it's not like talking about it yesterday. She's like, yeah, you can't undo it. Like,
Can't
he's just
undo
there
it.
all the time.
Yeah,
Cause he reframes and like peels back the onion, like however many layers the onion is.
yeah.
So, very cool.
I loved it too, and like Sarah said, you know, sometimes we're in that position where you're like, you know, I don't think I can do this, you know, this is just way too much, like, and then he made the point of, well, have you done it before? Yeah, so you have done it and you've made it through, yes, oh, okay, so you can do it. Yeah, I guess we can. Wait, yeah, that's a trick question. But it was extraordinary, and I know, or I think everybody left with some information there, so.
Well,
Thank you for attending and thanks for being there, go ahead.
One last thing, so when, you know, it's getting the calls and whatnot of like, hey, are you gonna be there? I only committed to Saturday, cause I was like, I kinda want a rest day, and I've been busy, and like, I had no excuse to not do it on Sunday. But then I came on Saturday, and it's like, well, I have to be here Sunday, and it was still like, he filled our brains so much, but like getting my brain filled and like being able to kind of look at myself, like it was kind of a rest day, like in a way, because then it made me just more like relaxed, and I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had to be here.
Self-care, you were doing self.
Yeah, yeah.
Self-growth and care and all of that, which eventually affects your entire life, right?
Mhm,
And then as an agent, you can use all of those skills he gave us
mhm.
with all of your clients. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to say that what was really great about it is that he had like 9 snares that we, you know, how we get ourselves trapped in negative thinking or negative actions. But after exploring that, he had let's create the new story
Yeah.
for that snare so that there's a positive side to a negative event that
Right.
we can move forward with. That was really helpful to have the new story that we were creating. Yeah.
Yeah, or a programming that doesn't necessarily help you anymore. I hate that word negative, but a programming that doesn't help you anymore, right? And another way of seeing it. So just extraordinary. So if ever you get a chance to work with Fletcher, or we have a mastermind here, please attend, because it was life-changing, I think, right?
Lois, thanks for making that happen.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
the office for paying for it and for us, that was wonderful.
And that was a big, you know, the investors, and Russ also was the mastermind behind that, in a sense, where he was like, you know, how, you know, to the depths of everything, how can we help everyone? I mean, you can help agents around everything, right, peripherally, but like, how do you actually affect a change or affect something that internally, your internal conversation can change, right? That would affect everything you're doing. And so we would thank Russ for that insight, and asking Fletcher also to do that, but thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, yep, a couple events coming up.
There we go.
There's Fletcher. I just spoke to him, so we can go. We can move through that. That was my, and then don't forget that we will be, or I think Russ and a couple of other agents, Stella, Annette maybe, not sure, will be at the Seattle Home Show, February 22nd. Starting February 22nd, which is Thursday, right?
Yeah,
They'll be there for the whole week.
tomorrow, I believe, to set up.
Okay, so we'll be there. We'll have presents there. If you have listings, anything like that coming up, please make sure you get them to Kelly, because, or have you laminated everything already? You're done.
Let's laminated everything.
Well, yeah, well,
Because he is
I'm
leaving,
gonna do a couple more.
he's leaving first thing in the morning, so
Okay.
I only have.
Whatever you can do. Okay, so anyway, if you have anything, let us know if it's pressing, or if you want something at the show, let us know. Because he's leaving tomorrow, or get it to us as quickly as you can. You really want to have it up there and present. Yeah. And then, of course, a group of us, 7 of us, are going to the family reunion. Let's see.
Cross fingers, it works. It'll
Cross
work.
fingers, it
It'll
works.
work.
Here we are. Okay, so we have 7 team leaders, leadership and agents going. We leave on Sunday and we'll be back Thursday. There will not be a roundup next week. But we still have to talk to you. You'll still do the contracts class? Okay, so Marcia will still be doing the contracts class, but we won't have the roundup next week. Just for your information. Anything else on that you'd like to add, Ashley, on the family reunion?
No, it's great. And, well, I guess I'll show my face.
Yeah.
I'm talking to the
Thank
camera.
you.
Hi. So for those of you that were at the Chase Williams thing last week where he had, which I'm gonna send out today, all the wonderful slides with the economics and, you know, how that kind of ties into things and, you know, the history of the market and just knowledge. That's something that really mimics what Gary Keller does for like 3 hours at family reunion. And so we're gonna bring back a bunch of slides that's just information. And they've been great at listing appointments and we're gonna bring you back a lot of stuff. So. There you go. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
And I'll share my screen again because I wanted to share. So kind of this interesting, cool thing to where I thought this deal was going to fall apart and it didn't, which was very cool. So listed at $398.9, interesting number. We got our offer accepted at $390. It was only on the market for like 3 days, but we were flexible in the sellers needed to stay there like 3 days after possession and we gave them an extra day to clean. And so, and it was priced well. I mean, it would appraise at that higher price, but flexibility, calling the agent, we got it accepted, which was sweet. And then we did the home inspection. Buyers wanted $10,000, which there was not really anything crazy about the house. They're first time home buyers. I think they were just nervous, but they were adamant, like, we need to ask this number. And I was like, yeah, like they've been very flexible with, you know, we already got it under price. The lender actually waived the appraisal. They were only putting 20% down, which I hadn't seen it be waived. I've only had it done at like 50% down in higher numbers. But they said, yeah, we're so comfortable with the price it's at, like we're gonna waive the appraisal. So that's like a huge benefit.
That's good.
But 10 grand is still a lot to ask. So seller came back with a $3,000 credit. So super large gap in kind of where we were both at. So, yeah, I mean, would you guys think this deal's gonna like fall apart? Or do you have ideas of how it could not fall apart? Anybody?
Increase the price back up?
Yeah.
Yes. And what's funny is my brain didn't think of that. Yeah, it didn't cross my mind until the listing agent, she's like, oh, well, they could just raise it back up to 398.9 and get a $12,000 credit. So whichever way you want to do it is fine, because it gets the seller the same amount of money. And it was great of having the conversation because it just in that moment, it didn't click like at all. And so then I called the lender and he's like, oh, we could still get the appraisal waiver. I'll go into the computer now and see if it's an option. So yeah, even raising the price back up, still don't have to get an appraisal. They had a ton of conversations with the lender to understand credits because they were just so incredibly confused by like, how does that get us a better deal? And they were stuck on, well, raising the price, we're paying so much money over the life of the loan. I was like, are you gonna live here for 30 years?
Yeah.
So yeah, they saved $8,000 at closing and got a lower payment. And yeah, so we're headed to closing. They also have been in New Zealand for a week and this is my weird New Zealand one. So I had wire their money before they left, and then we have the signing scheduled while they're in Queenstown, New Zealand, and then we'll close next week.
Wow.
So it was very cool. But
Good
yeah,
job, Ashley. That's awesome. Yeah. It's amazing how people don't realize the whole moving around the numbers. If you ever get stuck and we're even not the lender, we'll help you guys navigate and what to say, because it's so crazy that like that simple of a idea sometimes just isn't there right at the tip of your, tip of your
yeah,
tongue.
it wasn't in my brain at the moment, but like, yeah, called, talked to the
Yeah.
agent. How can we get it? And then I was like, oh yeah. Like, yeah, it was very cool.
And I find it amazing how many agents don't want to talk to the other agent. Like,
Well,
okay, we
100%
both want
did
this.
that.
How can we work this out? What are you coming up with? What am I coming up? You're still representing your seller or your buyer, but you're trying to make it happen for both of them.
Yeah.
But it just amazes me how many agents don't talk or have a relationship with the other agent.
I mean, agents are negotiators.
There was nothing in the listing saying the seller wanted possession after closing. So I called her and said, what do the sellers want? Like, what can we do to win? And she's like, oh, well, they are, buying this other house and they need the money this day, but they're not moving in. But if you don't call, you don't get that information. So you don't know how to write like the best offer.
Exactly.
Call everyone.
Call everyone and then
Yeah,
instead of
call
going
Sharon
back and
and
forth,
call-
counter.
Yeah, and just do the best thing.
Yeah.
So
Great. That's a really great example
It
for
was
us.
fun.
Thank you for sharing that, Ashley.
I was excited for him. We'll put Sharon's. You can't see it on your end, but I always like to put your guys' faces over like your bodies in the picture we have on this slide. It's fun. Anyways.
That's funny.
it's your
Well,
turn.
good morning, Michael. Are you there? You want to take the
Yep, I can take it. So Ashley you wanted me to kind of mention, we have a couple classes going on, and then Sharon's going to jump into some cool things. We have our clock hour with a glass at Martin Scott Winery tomorrow at, is it 12 or 3?
3 to 6?
3 to
And we
6.
still have lots of room. I know, Ashley, you have a bunch signed up. So if you guys still want to sign up for that and want some charcuterie and 3 clock hours with a glass of wine, I just resent out the link. So you should have gotten that to sign up and buy a ticket if you haven't.
And then we have our script class at KW from noon to 1 on Thursday. So that was pretty bad. It seemed like everyone had a great response and had a lot of fun the last time we did it. So yeah, come and learn how we like to do things, and maybe we can teach each other, and yeah, we're looking forward to that as well. So that's from 12 to 1 at KW on Thursday.
Boomtown people have to
All
be here.
Boomtown people have to be there. It's mandatory.
Is a Boomtown person.
If you're gonna lead somebody down from us.
And then on Ashley's point, real quick, before Sharon gets on that example, people just still get so fixated on price, and that by getting a lower price, they're going to get a better deal. And I would say 9 times out of 10, this is never the case. If they're looking at selling the property in a year or a couple years and that they want a massive price reduction because they want that equity, then it might make sense. But 9 times out of 10, asking for a price reduction anyway is going to end up costing them more money typically, not only in their payment, but even just getting $10,000 back with a full price offer is going to save them $10,000 in closing costs that they won't have to bring to the table. So if you do have those situations, it's usually just better off not asking for a reduction and trying to get that in closing costs. But no,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and most people want that credit to buy down the rate right now, correct? So what's cool, and we have a program and we've talked to you guys about this, is that if you show them the lower price with the higher interest rate versus the higher price with the lower interest rate, they will actually pay less interest over time on that scenario. So when you show them the numbers of interest in a year of how much they'll pay, that's less just because the interest is going to reduce how much they're paying, even though they're paying $10,000 more for the house, it actually benefits them more to get the lower rate versus the lower price. And so we're seeing that a lot on a lot of deals, if you're even getting any credits at all. So, but yeah, keep that in mind. Talk to the lender and the agent. So when you're calling those agents, it's some other listing agents aren't going to always think of that either. So make sure you're talking to the lender, or like I said, give us a call, even if we're not the lender, and we can, our brains think like that, like 10 million times a day. So we can instantly look at a scenario and go, bing, 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 do this, you got it. And, we actually help people put deals together by brainstorming offers all the time. So don't leave out your lender, especially if they're creative like us, because you're going to get more deals done, because we know what the clients are thinking psychologically, and we can help you say the words to them that will help them understand what it is they're wanting, really.
And don't be afraid to push back on that note
Yeah.
a little bit on your buyers. I would encourage, just because some people just don't know what they don't know. So we get some stubborn people that say, no, I want a lower price because it's a better deal. And I say, okay, well, here's an example at the lower price, and here's an example at the higher price with closing costs. And instantly they go, wait, this doesn't make any sense. And then they have a total mind shift change at that point. So yeah, we can always do examples for people, like she said, even if we're not the lender on the deal.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. And then just a quick reminder, at 1:00 today, we are having our own economic experts on a national call with Prime Lending to talk about what the market is doing, what it's going to do, what rates are going to do possibly. So it's only a 30-minute call. I did send the link out, but I'm going to include it again right after this meeting, so that if you want to jump on that at 1:00, I would highly encourage you to do so that you can hear straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, on what's going on in the economy and what to look for coming up.
That's great. That's valuable.
Yes, and then don't forget, we've got a lot of creative products. We are able to do a lot of things that other lenders can't do. We have loans for people who own cannabis companies as well as employees, so they can own one or be working at one. And then in addition to that, of course, we've got the home equity lines of credit, the bridge loans. We've got unique condo situations that we can get by that other lenders may not be able to. We make exceptions on a lot of things. We also have a really cool 3-year ARM product right now that's fixed for 3 years, which would allow people to get in cheaply. The par rate today is 6.5 with no points. So that's pretty cheap for, it's a 3-year fixed. And then there's no prepayment penalty. So if they want to refinance when rates drop before that 3-year ends, then they can do that as well. So a lot of creative things to help answer people's questions on, how do I afford the house, that kind of thing. So.
And one last thing, bank statement loan. Just had this happen. Ashley, you kind of know what I'm talking about. We had a client that, because they wrote off a lot on their taxes, we were probably only able to use about $2,000 a month on their income. But by using the bank statement program, we take their deposits and minus expenses, and we average that out on a 24-month. And we were able to go from $2,000 a month up to almost 10 grand a month in qualifying income, just based on bank statements. So now the options have drastically increased as far as what they can be approved for and what houses they can look at. So something else that's pretty creative.
Yeah, and Anna, to answer your question, we do qualify them at the higher rate. But there are a lot of ways to help people qualify with that. Most people are just more concerned with their payment. So it would not qualify at the 6.5, it would qualify at the fully indexed, which still would be fairly low today. It's pretty similar to the 6.5, the margin plus the index. But yeah, a great product just because the points are so low, there's no points on that. Because the average rate right now without any points is close to 7.25 today. Rates came back up. So yeah, just another option to have that. And then to Michael's point with the bank statement loan, a lot of people are doing their taxes right now and are looking at that bottom line number. So I would encourage all of you know an accountant or a CPA. I would encourage you to go to them and say, hey, my lender has a product, because we're actually hitting all the CPAs and accountants in our area as well, and letting them know that, hey, when your business owners sit down with you and they're concerned about not being able to qualify for a house this year because their expenses are so high, then you can offer that solution. And we have flyers we're going to send to you so that you can drop those by. If you have a personal relationship with a CPA, that's how things get referred to you, so that you can be the conduit with that CPA saying, hey, any of your business owners that want to buy a house this year that are concerned about qualifying, we have a special program through our preferred lender. Here it is. Call me if your clients want to buy a house, because they're sitting down with those people right in front of them. And those are perfect referral partners to be able to have another source of business that can come your way and our way as well.
You're gonna send that flyer out to us?
Yeah, I'm gonna send it to Ashley and then she can distribute that out. I'm gonna bring copies on Thursday as well, just so that you have a stack of them. But it's just a great time to get in front of those people because it's top of mind, because they're gonna be doing their taxes, and a lot of people are like, oh, I want to qualify for a house, but I don't want to pay all these taxes. So now they can have the best of both worlds and be able to use that bank statement. All we're doing is adding up all their deposits on their business bank statements. Depending on what line of work they're in, there's an expense factor that we take off of that. But to Michael's point, the increase in income is huge, and it makes the difference between being able to buy a house and not having to pay all the taxes too. So it's a win-win.
Any questions, anyone? Sharon or
Great
Mike?
things.
Yeah, thank you.
Before you move on, I just found out the Russ isn't gonna get the pictures from me until tomorrow morning, so if you do have a listing, if you can get a picture to me, like by 2:30, 3 o'clock today, then I can get it out.
Sweet. Kelly?
And we'll be going up, we'll be in Seattle Sunday, right? So we can drop stuff off.
What time will it?
But anyway.
Make it work.
Is that the last day, Sunday? It's gonna stay Friday, Saturday.
25th.
Yeah, the
Oh.
25th, yeah, it's the last day.
Oh, that's Monday. Okay.
Yeah, so I have to have them today.
Okay.
Before we close.
Actually, Ashley, can you see that bank statement flyer in the messages? Did it come through okay?
Oh, and like the chat, or you sent it to me?
I did it in the chat. I didn't know I could do that, but I just wanted it looks like a PDF. Can you see it?
I do not.
Oh, maybe it didn't work.
Well, just go ahead and.
Oh, you know what? I didn't send it.
Just hanging out there.
That helps. How about now?
Oh, it'll probably come through in a second.
Yep, there it is.
Yep, we got it.
We got it.
We got it.
That's the flyer. You guys can all click on it now and save it to your hard drive. But I'll bring, like I said, I'll bring copies on Thursday as well.
And I will send it out as well.
Yeah.
So multiple excuses as to not read it.
Exactly. That's your homework, everybody. Call your CPA or your accountant or find one and go tell them, bring a stack of business cards. Go in and just say, hey, I'm just here to give you some information on a really cool program that'll help some of your business owners possibly qualify for a house. Just drop it off, be friendly, bring them some cookies, whatever. And that'll be your sales call.
And tax season is also a great idea to get in touch with your past people. I saw Anna Marie does a great thing where she sends all her past clients their like final settlement statement from closing, so they have their final closing document. And that's just a nice little thing just to do for your people, and then they remember you, yeah, friendly and all that.
Sharon,
So
Yes,
Kelly and I will see you tomorrow morning at 9.
yes, yep.
Okay, great.
I will be there.
awesome.
Is that it?
I wanted to.
That's all we got.
Thank you.
Good to see you. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna share, do you share it on your bank statement loans? What do rates start at? Anna Marie's.
Oh. So the rates are gonna be on average about 1 to 1.5% higher than standard Fannie Mae Freddie Mac pricing. So they are gonna be higher. But if it gets them into that house, then they can refinance later once they show the income. Yeah, so they are gonna be higher. We locked in one, I think we just did one that we closed. It was 7 7/8, or 8 1/8. So they were, you know, if the average is 7, it was like 8 is where we were starting at. 8, 8 1/4. They can pick their rate just like they can pick their rate on the conforming. So they can buy the rate down just like they can buy the rate down on a conforming. So it really just depends on their credit score, their debt to income ratio. If we're using 12 months or 24 months bank statements, 24 months is going to be a lower rate than 12 months. But if someone doesn't have a lot of income on their 12-month, they might need to go to the 24-month. So it just depends on the situation. That's about an average though.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And Sharon sent out something wonderful last week because I was talking to Brooke about, you know, the seller credit side of things. And I'm gonna pull up what you have sent because it's, you could just literally just pass it on to your clients. And this shows, let's see, send it to me and everybody in the room can just read my emails. So you sent it to me. No credits. Okay. So let me share my screen again and I will show you guys this real quick. Okay, so she has, I mean, she usually types out kind of the difference of 500,000 at a $15,000 credit, lower rate due to buying down, 485 with no credit, still results in a higher rate. And result, reduced price ends up being a higher payment and higher cash to close. And she includes this great video. And essentially it just shows you a nice breakdown of what the difference is. You know, savings, yeah, monthly savings, $60 cash.
Yeah.
A lot
So the
less,
higher,
less.
yep, higher price had the lower rate. The lower price had the higher, kind of what you just talked about on your deal. This is exactly similar to what you just shared about how you got that deal to come together. So you ended up going with the higher price, but then there was a seller credit right there. And the seller credit was used to buy the rate down to 6.5 versus 7. And if you can see down below the cash to close and the lower payment, even though the price is higher. So that kind of ties right in with your example earlier.
And for, yeah, your visual buyers. And I mean, you guys would, of course, dive into this once you're chatting with them, but it's good just to have it as an example for buyers that are like, oh, I'm going to wait till prices go, you know, kind of those objections of like, well, until you talk to a lender, like, there's options in a more flexible market to get you a lower payment. So.
Right.
it's knowledge.
Mhm. Yeah, good. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Of course.
Thank you.
And, yeah, after this, we have, Marcia.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming today, everybody. Appreciate that.
And yeah, we'll have Marcia in a few minutes. So don't wave bye to me. Stay on Zoom. Everybody's leaving. It's fine.
Tomorrow is the gentleman you know, I think. That was today.
Tonight's the one that you know, but
Oh, tonight's the
tomorrow
one she knows.
Lois has a thing. So yes, depending on tonight, we were gonna see if you would be available. Annette, can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
yes, I can. I can.
Intel display audio default. Because since it's a new computer, you're not connected to that. So I just need to make sure that the stuff's coming through this computer. Because then I can switch it to this speaker or this mic. And she might be just busy. If she can't hear you after, it'll just show up in the chat.
I can hear you.
But I can't. Default should work. So default, Realtek speakers, Realtek. Yeah, I think you're good.
All right.
You're good. We'll just believe that you're good and everything's
All
fine.
right.
She'll let you know if she can't hear you, but I don't see any reason that she wouldn't be able to.
Okay.
Figuring
So
it out.
from those of you in the room, any contract questions before we get started? Okay. So how many, well, there's not that many of you, but how many of you go into the hotline and look at the hotline questions?
Love it.
Yes, good,
Submitted a few.
good. Yeah.
You get an answer in like a day.
She's really very good about it. She knows her forms. Okay, so the very first question on here, oh, I didn't go all the way up. Pardon me. Very first question. I love this right here. I couldn't get it off my screen, and so I printed it anyways. So if you're a member of some local association you haven't paid, there was a hot link there. Do you think they're having trouble paying the dues this year? I bet we are. So here is a question about lending, and this has to do with VA lending. And what are some of the rules that are different about a VA as opposed to, say, maybe a conventional?
Buyer can't pay their own agent.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And there's parts of the closing that the seller has to pay. So the question was, the seller is refusing to pay compensation to a buyer brokerage on a contract where the buyer has veteran status and not allowed to compensate their realtor. What is the response to the seller? Is it a violation of fair housing? Isn't the veteran a protected class and the seller obligated to pay compensation? What recourse is there for the buyer against the seller in this matter? Well, the seller is not discriminating against the buyer because the buyer is a veteran. What the seller is doing is saying they do not want to pay any commission, which it to me is a little short-sighted because their listing will not get the same coverage. Instead, the seller is refusing to pay the buyer broker fees. So there is no state or federal law compelling a seller to pay a buyer broker's fees. So that's just part of it. Fair Housing Act at the very bottom does not guarantee a VA buyer the right to compel a seller to compensate for the buyer broker fees. So when you are doing a listing, this comes up two different ways. When you're doing a listing, then and you go over the forms of lending, then you want to make sure that you cover with them that there are some instances, like with this example with the VA, where they will be compelled to pay. And then some of the closing cost. And so then you will need to really get with your lender so that you can explain it to your seller. Get with the lender so that they can really explain it to the seller. And all that does is, by law, you can't compel somebody to pay a brokerage fee. All right, any questions on that?
So how is it usually paid then? Is it usually paid by the seller? Or the
Yes,
buyer?
yes, because there are some things on a VA loan they're restricted from paying. Did you want to say any, did I cover it all?
No, you're correct. It's, the seller has to pay it. If the seller were to refuse, I guess that would be a problem in escrow. It would hold up the deal because
Well,
now there's
yeah,
somebody that's.
that would come up in using your 22A, because it would show it would be financing and then whatever percent down payment that's when you need to, when you get this, you need, if you're listing it, you need to have that conversation. One, just verify, you'll know, gee, are they going to do any buyer brokerage firm fees? Or to make sure that they know that they sell this to a VA with a VA financing, then there are fees that you have to pay at closing.
What are the fees? I've never closed a VA. I've only written an offer on a VA.
I think there's a part of, isn't there a part of their escrow or just part of their closing that the seller is required to pay?
See, I thought there was just a box on the 22A to where you could like choose if the seller, if you're asking the seller to pay like a certain, like in the loan cost provision sections to where you put a like amount of seller credit. I thought there was like 2 little boxes in that paragraph that talk about VA in some.
I would have to go back and
Yeah,
take a look at that.
I
Yeah.
look it up here soon.
There
I
is
just can't
part of the
remember.
22A that does describe a VA transaction.
Yeah.
I don't know what they are without looking at it. But,
Yeah.
I'll look here.
but it does address it.
Because I've never written one. I don't know. Perfect.
But I think it also, I think that there's more variables than people think. There's not little, there's.
It's not a
concrete. It's not
cookie.
super concrete.
Yeah.
Because I know that veterans can pay an escrow fee in some circumstances, whether that lender will allow it or not.
I have seen probably in the last 10 days, 2 VAs. One of them was 20% down and the other one was 50% down. So even people that are applying for a VA loan, they probably have sold other property and they're bringing in that cash. But I don't know. I would have to really look at that because I don't know.
I think that double zero down VA is where absolutely the buyers are not paying anything and usually don't have it 2 dimes to arrive together.
Yeah.
They just don't have money to pay anything. That's why they use that loan program.
And that is why it is really important when you get an offer that you go over with your client, the seller, what does that mean for them? Another person that is really good to be able to give that information to you is an escrow officer. And they can take a look at the contract and say what is going to be paid and what isn't.
I think I've even Googled before, VA allowable cost to buyer. I think you can just Google it and
What a great idea.
that you can get lists. And I'm trying to think the last time I did that, I'm not so sure that they were totally in agreement, the lists that I got from different places.
Okay, so you put Google, whoops, whoa, this thing is touchy.
Allowable, VA allowable buyer cost or allowable cost to the veteran in a VA loan.
Okay, I'm just going to put that right there in the notes. Okay. So that lovely tail provision, that to me doesn't seem like it has very much teeth in it. But for all expired listings still within the tail provision, does the listing need to be reinstated with updated listing paperwork in order to sell, with broker compensation as agreed in the original listing? So that whole area is such is not clear to me, because if you have an expired listing and you go 90 days and you had 120 days as a tail on that, then it's not always guaranteed that the buyer or the broker is going to get the compensation back on that. Must an updated listing agreement be put in place to fill out the offer of compensation? Can the broker reference the expired listing number on the PSA and write in the original offer or buyer broker compensation on Form 21? Expired listing agreement is the contract that creates seller obligation and the firm's right to compensation. So if you have done a lot of work and you bring a buyer and the offer expires and then they get together with them and do a deal, then if it's within that tail provision, then that still is, it still applies. No additional agreement is required if the tail provision of the expired listing agreement is triggered.
But your point is that collecting on that's gonna be hard to do.
Mhm.
You may
Especially,
have to initiate legal action even to do that.
I believe so.
So you might have
Yeah.
to hire an attorney probably to even
And it, yeah.
think about it.
Yeah. It's just, that's when I believe in the law of karma. What goes around comes around. All right. So this whole great big long thing here, a person was selling property. It had a well on it. And it also had, I think they called it reverse osmosis system, reverse osmosis system in the kitchen for the drinking water. And they found out when they did some testing that it had 4 times the limit of uranium levels in the water. I'd be finding out where that came from and go mining. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, so their whole question was, is it, does, if, obviously, the seller knew that there were heightened levels of uranium in the water because he put an osmosis in it so that the drinking water was normal, but the rest of the water in the house had that same thing. I don't know, I'd be wanting to take a shower in that. I mean, to me, it just doesn't seem right. So, so the sellers seem to think by installing a point source, what do they call that again? Reverse osmosis system, that there's no need to disclose contaminants in the water. Their clients had spent over $2,000 on all the different testing. So here's the real question. Would the seller now, after sharing all of those things, those reports with them, would the seller now have a disclosure obligation if my buyers decide to terminate the agreement? And if the seller does decide to mitigate the issues with a whole house reverse osmosis filtration system, would they be required to disclose that there are contaminants in the well water? So if they go ahead with it and then they put that reverse osmosis through all of their water, then, and they buy it, does the seller then have to disclose it in the new Form 17 if they ever sell it?
So I have a quick question regarding that, because I don't know where do they normally test the water when you're doing a water test? Is it
At the well.
wellhead?
Yeah.
At the wellhead, right, so it's not even in the house, it's at the.
Well, many times what you'll do in the house is you'll run, the instructions are you run the water, but you test it in more than one location. So the last one I did was Ludwig's cabin in Metau, and we tested it at the well and we tested it at the sink, the kitchen sink, and they had very specific things that they had to do with it. So, bottom line is, not everybody is going to be ethical. To me, I think that's very easy. I think you need to disclose that. It's sort of like if I bought a house and then 5 years after I lived there, I found out that the roof is leaking. And so I put in either the whole roof or a new roof in that. To me, I feel like I should disclose that there was a leak, but we replaced it with a new roof, and upon request, you can have the invoice from the roofer. I mean, that's what I would do if that was me. Now, some people don't want to put that, but to me, I think that's a material fact. So this is what an attorney said. Seller must consider all the facts at issue related to the disclosure question and determine, likely with the assistance of seller's lawyer, what disclosures are required. So we can't tell them what is to be disclosed or not. That is, if they really have a question about that, then they need to go to an attorney. If the buyer believes the buyer has a claim against the seller based on the seller's failure to make required disclosures, brokers should advise the buyer to seek legal counsel. Neither broker nor hotline lawyer can assist buyer in evaluating any potential claim or remedy. And then what is our responsibility once that sale closes? What's our responsibility to either the buyer or the seller? Once that sale closes, our obligation is done.
Yeah, I was like, we're not.
It's over.
Yeah.
Agreement terminates as soon as it closes.
Yeah. And so we need to be very careful that we don't go back. Now, Russ does it all the time to save a trip to small claims court. I mean, that's why we have to be very careful. If it says washer and dryer, then what was it? Just maybe 2 or 3 months ago, they had all nice new appliances, and when they got in there, they were 8 years old. So the sellers and they found used ones, and so they were able to determine that from the pictures, and then also from the walkthrough. The people took pictures. So
at that point, I mean, when that happens, my understanding, there's nothing really in the contract that says like, okay, you have a clean way to get out if they did that. Like, it's just you decide
if
you want to
this is
close or
after
not.
closing,
Well, like, if like during the walkthrough, they realize the appliances got switched out. The
Yeah.
only thing you can really do, right, is like threaten to hold off closing or tell escrow to not record.
that you either
But
get a
then-
credit. Yeah, they spent 60. And what was really interesting about this is they walked through that house twice before closing. So Russ could have been a hard nose and said, because it was our broker that had the listing, and I think our broker had the sale. And so I think that they just came up with a way to be able to give a certain amount of money, so they wouldn't go to court. I mean, they wouldn't sue. But the two brokers they didn't have to pay the full 6,500 because, but they did. I think between them, I think they paid like for half of it
So just sacrifice to just get it done.
and get it. So there's
Because if not, then it's like, it's just all legal lawyer stuff. Like,
That's
if the
it.
buyers say we're not closing, then the sellers like.
and then they bring in the brokers and the brokerage and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
By
Yeah.
the way, anything that happened up to the time of recording that would, anything that a title escrow is gonna smell as a potential lawsuit or claim or anything that is brought up prior to recording, they'll stop. They won't record until it's resolved, just because of the liability for all the parties involved at that point.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, so that happens. That does happen because of the walkthroughs a lot of times where, yeah, they'll stop.
So this was just a really good review. If you're using a 35R, and you terminate the deal, what other form do you need to use? A 50. Sarah gets a gold star this morning. Yes.
One of the other things, if, once it closes, that ends our agreement with the client, if you're on the buyer side or the seller side. Anything you go back and start doing with them, you're not covered under E and O.
Mm.
So you lose your coverage for your insurance. So that's something you really need to think about.
You need
before
to
go
be
back
really
and talk to the
careful.
client
Yeah.
afterwards. If it has to do with something that's a problem, best thing to do is direct it to an attorney and then don't get involved.
Okay.
And with that earnest money, I found out, so I had a buyer that turned in their earnest money with like a personal check and then backed out of the deal. Title, and escrow still holds the money for at least 10 days before refunding it. But if they do a wire or a cashier's check,
Then it's
then they get-
immediate.
Yeah, which, I didn't know until it happened. And I was like, shit, dude, sorry.
You know,
Yeah.
what you do is, if they try to hold it for 10 days, the first thing I would say is.
Has
you're
it cleared
able-
your bank?
Has it cleared your bank?
Yeah.
Because You have the ability to
It's our
go in.
policy. It's
Well-
like, and it already been pending for a while, like it had been.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it was stupid.
Yeah,
So-
that's just not very
Yeah,
nice.
it's our policy.
Not
We're
very
like, well,
nice.
it's stupid. It doesn't make sense if it has cleared. What is
Yeah.
the,
Yeah.
like, I don't know if I just talk to a person that just like, it's by the rule book, rah.
Yeah.
We had the ability to go in and actually access the trust account to verify whether something had happened or
Yeah,
not. So
and
we
do
were
what you
allowed to do
think.
that. I could, as soon as it showed that it posted through, we could return it at that time. It was never. but there
A
are
hard
some
and
that
fast
say
rule.
10
Yeah.
days. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So of course the answer was a Form 50, and they should be delivered at the same time. Unfortunately, some of our brokers in the office do a 35R, and then when I review it, I'll say, was there earnest money? And if so, you need a Form 50. And then that would come through either a day or two later. So it's really important that you do them both together. Then if there's a dispute about the earnest money, then as soon as that is terminated, then the listing broker can put that back on the market. And then what do they call that? Escrow does an
An interplay.
an interplead.
Yeah, to the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Yeah, to find out who they think who the money should go back
And
to.
by the way, that whole action pretty much usually will eat up the entire earnest money.
Whatever
You're
is
better off
there.
settling. You're better off getting buyer and seller to settle so they at least get something.
Yeah. Okay, so this was just an oddball one that I thought was interesting. A Form 35F feasibility had 90 days. And the question is, how do we computate? What's the computation of time? So of course, holidays and weekends are included in that 90 days. It just can't end on a weekend or a holiday. And if it does, it goes automatically to the next business day. Short and sweet. Oh, this one I thought was really good because I learned something on this one. So if you have a 35W where they're waiving a home inspection, can they have a 22R for the well? Do they have the right?
I would think so.
Yep. Yeah, they can waive that home inspection, but retain all the rights that are on a 22R. And if you're having somebody that is buying one that has a house or property with a well, that's a great way to be able to do it. And you take a water sample and it's done usually within a week or 10 days, you'll know. And especially if you're going to buy that house that has the uranium issue. All right.
Glowing personality in that house.
The what?
They had a glowing personality, the people in that house. The uranium.
So this was a question where it was a vacant land and they had just the regular Form 17. So the question is, they said, no, this is going to work. Can the other broker say and just make the buyer accept that form even though that is not correct? Well, there are some what ifs. If you buy in a development and they're going to construct a home before closure, then you do want the Form 17. But if you're going to close and there's no structure on there, it should be a 17C. And there shouldn't really be any argument about it. So if the buyer is purchasing property that's unimproved currently and will be unimproved at closing, if so, the seller must provide the Form 17C. There's one of the things here that I wanted to just talk again about. Here's some more answer. Is our standard of care. I didn't write it out, but our standard of care as an attorney, and one of the things is that we pick the correct forms. And that's part of our standard. So if another broker says that, say, well, are they buying, they're not buying a completed home, so we need the unimproved, not the improved. And anyways, basically what they're saying here is if the buyer signs, that first signature line and acknowledges the receipt of the form, but the seller has delivered an incorrect disclosure statement, seller has not complied with the seller's obligation under the law, and buyer's acknowledgement of receipt of the incorrect form has no impact on the buyer's ongoing rights under the Seller Disclosure Act. So even if they refuse to give you the correct one, that all the rights of the buyer are still intact.
If that's the case, you could kill that deal up to the day of closing.
Yeah. I don't know.
Fight about the earnest.
Because you didn't deliver.
Yeah. And if it's the wrong form, then I don't know if this is being recorded or not, but if the wrong form is delivered, then the buyer can get out of the deal up to the day of closing.
We have a waiver notice of waiving the deal because they didn't deliver 5 days.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even understand how the listing broker could answer the seller's questions about the wrong form as to how to, what if they're saying, well, what do I answer here? If they don't apply, 90% of it's not going to apply.
We can't tell them,
Right,
we can't
no,
tell them anything on how to fill it out. But
We
you think
could,
that'd be a red
well,
flag to
first
the
of all,
seller.
they have to
Yeah,
give
never
them the
mind.
form, so the
Yeah.
broker is giving them the wrong form.
True, yep.
And so they get the DA award.
So they just be putting NA on everything is what they'd be doing basically, right?
Yeah, because there's no
Okay.
structural and there's no, there's environmental, and that's on both. Yeah, so it's just a stupid broker. DA stands for dumbass. So, I just want to talk about a deal that I just was reviewing over the weekend. A broker at 5:00 sent me a deal that because they were under 2 years, they needed to have me review it prior to sending it to their clients. But the deadline was at 9:00.
And what time did they?
At 5:00 at night. And we were en route to our friend's house, a brand new, no, what?
Is that one of my people?
No.
Great, okay, come on.
Don't be talking about me, right?
All right.
Like, I gotta talk to somebody.
And then and I'm going to do an age factor here. I got there and forgot all about it. So at 9:00, I call them up on the way home and I go, I am so sorry. And they sent it to me. I looked at it. I said, it looks perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So please be aware that Ashley or I are not always going to be available. And the best way to do it is to give us warning. If that morning that person had sent me a text and said, I'm in the process of writing this kind of an offer and I need to have you review it, or it is my first listing and I've got an offer and I need you to respond by 9:00. Well, they had 2 days. So please be real respectful of our time and realize that because you have an emergency doesn't make it an emergency for us. But that's not the way that we look at it. If we're available, we'll help out.
So I have a question, because it's probably my biggest concern in coming back to Keller Williams is what happens when you're not available? So what happens if you're driving to Fort Townsend tomorrow afternoon and I've got an offer and I know there are other offers coming in, so I want to get mine in as quickly as possible, but you're on the road?
So then the best thing is to call and see if I'm in an area where I can and get reception. I will pull over and I'll take a look at it and I'll give you a call back.
I always do a group text to Marsha and Russ, because Russ can do it too.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
But it's
then
probably
if you
easy.
can't get a hold of either one of us, then let Ashley know. And she is has been wonderful at backup for me, but that hasn't happened very many times, has it?
Yeah, because even though, I mean, I'm technically not on paper a managing broker, so, but it's still like as long as the
In
office
emergency
gets
like that.
email, then yeah, I mean, if you need to go quick. then
Especially since July is your anniversary of 2 years.
No, nay.
Nice.
I may survive after all.
Have you done your 90 hours yet?
I'm halfway through.
Oh, okay. I was like, if you haven't yet, I have a great school that just, yeah, makes it real quick and yeah, it's lovely.
I'm
But I'm glad you're doing it.
trying to stay out of the weeds because it's in the law part and I find it interesting. It's like you can't.
Mhm.
Thank you, Marsha.
You are welcome. And I think that's it. And I have no idea how I get back to,
So do the Firefox on the left, the lower one, so straight to the left, up a little right there.
Oh.
Down one, right there. I know, it's very weird, it's very different here. Bye, Net.
bye.